If you're interested in space and communications, such as technology, policy, business, and operations, take a look at the Cosmic AES Signals in Space. Produced in partnership with the CyberWire, Signals in Space offers a monthly overview of news in this sector. Check it out at cosmicaes.com/tech-news. That's cosmicaes.com/tech-news. Funding for this CyberWire podcast is made possible in part by Duo. While remote work has been on the rise for years now, the recent rapid expansion of work-from-home culture presents new security challenges. It's Duo's mission to make application access more secure for organizations of all sizes. Duo's modern access security is designed to safeguard all users, devices, and applications so you can stay focused on what you do best. Give your organization the peace of mind that only complete device visibility can bring. Visit duo.sc/cyberwire to sign up for a free 30-day trial. And we thank Duo for sponsoring our show. Reports of Chinese cyber engagement with Indian critical infrastructure. The US government declassifies its report on the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The SolarWinds supply chain compromise remains under investigation, with an intern making a special appearance. Maligh search engine optimizations. Rick Howard shares hash table opinions on Google Cloud. Josh Ray from Accenture on cybercrime and the cloud. And congratulations to the winners of CISA's President's Cup. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Monday, March 1st, 2021. Threat intelligence firm Recorded Future's Insect Group reports that an apparent Chinese cyber sabotage group they're tracking as RedEcho has been active against India's infrastructure. RedEcho is a new name because, despite some apparent links to other Chinese APTs, identification remains unclear. The group may have been staging potential attacks with a view to holding India's electrical power grid at risk. Recorded Future puts it this way, quote, potential pre-positioning of network access to support Chinese strategic objectives, with some attendant speculation about signaling, supportive influence operations, or as a precursor to kinetic escalation. They go on to say, quote, since early 2020, Recorded Future's Insect Group observed a large increase in suspected targeted intrusion activity against Indian organizations from Chinese state-sponsored groups. From mid-2020 onwards, Recorded Future's Midpoint collection revealed a steep rise in the use of infrastructure tracked as Axiomatica Symptote, which encompasses ShadowPad command and control servers, to target a large swath of India's power sector. 10 distinct Indian power sector organizations, including 4 of the 5 regional load dispatch centers, responsible for operation of the power grid through balancing electricity supply and demand, have been identified as targets in a concerted campaign against India's critical infrastructure. Other targets identified included 2 Indian seaports. End quote. Recorded Future does say it expects further such activity as long as Sino-Indian tensions remained high, but it's worth noting that Recorded Future's conclusions are more tentative than those reached by the New York Times and various media outlets in India, and the report should be received in the spirit of relative circumspection in which the researchers seem to have offered it. That cyber sabotage of a power grid would have great potential for disruption is clear. As Control Global points out, one need look no further than the consequences of the Texas ice storms last month to see the possibilities. Whatever happened in India, the incident would seem to point out the difficulties in deterrence and signaling in cyberspace. If indeed the staging represents an attempt on Beijing's part to signal to India that its power grid is at risk, for example, that signaling would seem to have come at the cost of blowing the means of access to that grid. The US government late Friday released a long-anticipated intelligence report on the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, declassified by the Director of National Intelligence. The report's executive summary is direct and succinct. Quote, "We assess that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved an operation in Istanbul, Turkey to capture or kill Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. We base this assessment on the Crown Prince's control of decision-making in the kingdom, the direct involvement of a key advisor and members of Mohammed bin Salman's protective detail in the operation, and the Crown Prince's support for using violent measures to silence dissidents abroad, including Khashoggi. Since 2017, the Crown Prince has had absolute control of the kingdom's security and intelligence organizations, making it highly unlikely that Saudi officials would have carried out an operation of this nature without the Crown Prince's authorization." End quote. As one would expect, the report frames its conclusions largely in terms of a priori probability and takes care not to reveal intelligence sources and methods. But it was widely believed at the time that U.S. intelligence services had collected signals and cyber intelligence that pointed to the direct involvement of Saudi intelligence services in the murder. The Washington Post reports that the Biden administration will not impose direct sanctions on the Saudi Crown Prince. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said at a news conference that, quote, "The relationship with Saudi Arabia is bigger than any one individual," end quote, and that appears to be the way the administration stands with the Crown Prince, at least even as it discusses a recalibration, that's recalibration, not, as the State Department stresses, a rupture, of relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. According to Politico, the State Department did impose more than 70 visa restrictions on other persons involved in the killing, and the Treasury Department announced sanctions against the former deputy head of Saudi intelligence services and on members of the group deemed responsible for Khashoggi's murder. The White House is facing some pressure from congressional Democrats, in particular, the Washington Post reports, to take more direct action against Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The effects of the SolarWinds supply chain compromise continue to spread through U.S. government agencies. Wired writes that the metaphorical body count now includes NASA and the FAA. So how did all this happen in the first place? Investigation continues, and current and former SolarWinds executives are blaming an intern for setting up the now famous bad password, SolarWinds 123, which CNN reports was out loose on the internet for several years before it was detected. Sure, it's a bad password, but that finding a password would have been sufficient to give the sort of access necessary to the whole shebang of a major supply chain compromise seems surprising. Still, bad password, and apparently some weak supervision of that intern. Sophos describes the bootloader infection framework, which is not only expanding its payloads but using a novel approach to search engine optimization to bring its criminal bait to the attention of potential victims. The payloads currently being served up by bootloader include the Gootkit banking Trojan, Kronos, Cobalt Strike, and R-Evil ransomware. And finally, late Friday, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency announced the winner of its President's Cup cybersecurity competition. Congratulations to the cyberspace capability engineers from the 780th Military Intelligence Brigade who took this year's honors. And now, a word from our sponsor, ExtraHop, securing modern business with cloud-native network detection and response. The massive shift to remote work has turned the reality of work on its head. With cloud and multi-cloud adoption, comprehensive visibility is more important than ever. But in order to protect your business, you need more than unified visibility. You need intelligence response workflows so teams can collaborate easily and act quickly. ExtraHop helps organizations like Wizards of the Coast detect threats up to 95% faster. As John Kreese, senior IT engineer, puts it, quote, ExtraHop is helping us accelerate cloud adoption by ensuring our workloads are secure. See how it works in the full product demo, free and no forms required, at extrahop.com/cyber. That's extrahop.com/cyber. And we thank ExtraHop for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Rick Howard. He is the CyberWire's Chief Security Officer, also our Chief Analyst. But more important than any of that, he is the host of the CSO Perspectives podcast, which is part of CyberWire Pro. Rick, this week you are concluding a two-part mini-series on securing the Google Cloud platform. And I know you've been talking to our hash table members about GCP. Where do we stand when it comes to folks preferring Google Cloud over the other two big providers like Amazon and Microsoft?
Well, Dave, you would think that question would be simple to answer, wouldn't you? Well, as with all things security, and I guess most things in general, it isn't. And by the way, when I was in the Army back when, muzzle-loading muskets were what the cool kids had, in one unit, we gave memento plaques to all the departing soldiers, and we gave one to everybody. And we put these engraved words in Latin. Here it is. You ready? Nihil facala est, and roughly translated, nothing is easy, right? And that's sort of the...
Wow, so upbeat.
Yeah, it wasn't a great unit. What could I say?
Okay.
So that's the case when we're trying to decide where do we want to deploy, our workloads into the cloud. And to a person, all of the CyberWire's hash table members were intrigued by the way Google had implemented Zero Trust with their Beyond Core architecture. But the only member that is actually trying it is my old friend Bob Turner, the CISO for the University of Wisconsin at Madison.
So are they all in there, or are they putting the crown jewel workloads into GCP, or are they just doing a little dabbling?
I would split the difference there, okay? Bob doesn't have his crown jewels in there because, like most of the other hash table members, he's using AWS for workloads and Office 365 for email and, other things. But he got the opportunity to play with GCP when his university joined a group research project with other universities, and that project is using GCP. So in this episode, we talked with Bob about what he likes and dislikes about the Google Cloud environment and the journey his university went on to get there. But if you're looking for the more compelling reason to listen to this episode, you're going to want to listen to Bob's Midwestern sense of humor, because he defined some new words for me that I'd never heard of. I'm going to give you three.
Go on.
Conditions of weirdness, or COW for short. Let that sink in. Okay.
I love it. All right. Yes.
He's from Wisconsin, the dairy capital of the world, so that's where that comes from. Cyber shenanigans, which I really like, but my new favorite security phrase of all time is cyber cow tipping. Yes, that's a thing.
Right. And to find out what it means, you too will have to check out the latest episode of CSO Perspectives. It's part of CyberWire Pro. You can find it on our website, thecyberwire.com. Rick Howard, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
And now a message from our sponsor, CyberReason. If you're a defender fighting to protect your organization from the dark forces of cyber attackers, it might seem attackers have the advantage. To win, they only need to be successful once. As a cyber defender, you must be successful in ending attacks every single time. CyberReason reverses the attacker's advantage. They put the power back in your hands. Their future-ready attack platform gives defenders the wisdom to uncover, understand, and piece together multiple threats, and the precision focus to end cyber attacks instantly on computers, mobile devices, servers, and the cloud. Wherever your organization's data is being threatened, CyberReason is ready to win the battle against cyber attacks, with you and for you. Join them and the world's leading companies. Together, we are the defenders. CyberReason. End cyber attacks. From endpoints to everywhere. Learn more at cyberreason.com/cyberwire. And we thank CyberReason for sponsoring our show. And I'm pleased to be joined once again by Josh Ray. He is a managing director and also the global cyber defense lead at Accenture. Josh, it's great to have you back. I wanted to touch base with you today about the report that you all recently put out. This is the Accenture Threat Intelligence Report. Specifically, some of the areas in that report that are focused on cybercrime and the cloud. What can you share with us today?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Accenture Cyber Threat Intelligence team actually just completed a 2-year series of research where they were really looking at deep and dark web activity of actors targeting organizations in the cloud. And it might be a big surprise to your viewers, but one of the most common ways that actors are actually getting access to cloud environments is through system misconfiguration and publicly known unpatched vulnerabilities. So, hygiene comes back again as much as it does on traditional IT infrastructure as it does your cloud estate.
I think that the thing that always gathers attention in the press are when folks leave, for example, their AWS buckets just hanging out there, open to everyone to view. Is that sort of an edge case that attracts the most attention? But how? I guess I'm trying to figure out how prevalent is that? Is that the rare thing that attracts a lot of attention, or is that an ongoing concern for people?
I would say it's an ongoing concern, right? I mean, we've seen actually massive amount of API key and credential theft, exploited accounts that have been taken over that are being sold for access, but also insider threats. So, actors that are actively peddling, access to, their corporate infrastructure, unfortunately as well.
What are some of the specific things that folks need to worry about as they continue this sort of ongoing transition to the cloud?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, so, obviously the data that's there is an attractive target, especially for ransomware gangs who are looking to extort their victims. But, we help clients securely migrate to the cloud all the time. But what they have to understand is that the journey really doesn't end there. And once you get there, you still have to defend it. You have to treat it as that, just the other part of your business that you need to look after. And this, means doing things like patching and ensuring that, the native security controls are configured and applied correctly. But, one of the things that we really try to stress is that you can't stop there, right? You have to conduct that intel-driven red team exercises and hunts, and you have to have folks that conduct those really proper IR investigations in the cloud. And, Dave, I've seen, really just a lot of examples where, a client's cloud estate, unfortunately, is a visibility blind spot for them. So, one of the things that we're really focused on is making sure that, they have that proper logging enabled. But this is also, important to include their application security logs, right? And when they're doing that monitoring, they're actually applying the right level of threat and intelligence use cases so they can really focus on what's important to the business.
How do you help people manage their threat intelligence feeds, to keep it from being just that kind of overwhelming fire hose of information? How can they dial it in?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, properly operationalizing your threat intelligence is one of the things that I think a lot of organizations struggle with. And the first thing that they do is they talk about it as a threat intelligence feed when it should be looked at as really an extension of the capability. But it also should be something that you have a high degree of confidence and trust in. So you really want to think about, understanding strategically what your threat exposure is, what types of threats are going to try to target you, what are the TTPs that are being employed by those threats, and then how does that trickle down operationally to, the right types of security controls, and then the right types of tactical IOCs or other type of vulnerability intelligence that you need to, to help your operators apply that intelligence most effectively. So we really have to be able to look at it at different governance levels and take a very focused, requirement-driven look at what your organization needs to protect itself best against the threats that are going to impact it the most.
How about the cloud providers themselves? I mean, are they evolving the way that their own tools work, the way their interfaces work to try to help people along with this, to make it easier as they learn where the common sort of blind spots are?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, especially with a lot of the cloud providers that we work with pretty frequently. I mean, look, I think every platform or even product owner is, continuing to take active steps and active measures to incorporate the latest and greatest. But, you really have to think about, in order to maximize that investment, you really do need to have folks that, understand how to apply that product or platform and those controls in the most operational manner, and they're able to kind of continually tweak those controls based on the latest threat intelligence. So it's not just a one and done type of evolution. It's a continuous type of process that folks have to understand is they have to undertake.
All right. Well, Josh Ray, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. And for professionals and cybersecurity leaders who want to stay abreast of this rapidly evolving field, sign up for CyberWire Pro. It'll save you time and keep you informed. A taste of life. Listen for us on your Alexa smart speaker, too. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment called Security. I join Jason and Brian on their show for a lively discussion of the latest security news every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed, and check out the Recorded Future podcast, which I also host. The subject there is threat intelligence, and every week we talk to interesting people about timely cybersecurity topics. That's at recordedfuture.com/podcast. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Puru Prakash, Kelsey Bond, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Ivan, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.